Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the penultimate round of the Division 3 season here in the Midwest F1 League. The 10th season is about to come to a close, and not only is this our first time ever at the Lusail International Circuit here in Qatar, we have the potential for the Constructors' Champions being crowned today. All it takes is the Mercedes team walking out of here with a 139-point gap over that of the Alfa Romeo team. I believe I did the math earlier, and the gap currently sits at 124. Yes, Mercedes lead Alfa Romeo by 124 points. They need to leave this round in Qatar with a gap of 139, and they will seal the Constructors Championship. We are in the desert, first time ever. Hotspot with you on the call. I tell you what, we did this track in F2. Unfortunately, my internet kind of crapped out before I had the ability to finish the race. But this track is so fun to drive around. I mean, seriously, I am so excited to be at the circuit. And this is on the eve of the, I'd say, this won't be the first time F1's racing. This will be the second time. The first one where it's actually going to be consistently on the schedule. The first time was back in 2021, and now the World Cup's gone past. It is going to be time to where this track makes its returns to the schedule each and every year. This track is very difficult. It's very quick. It's very flowing. Only 2 spots on this entire track, at most, are you ever going to be under 4th gear. In fact, that run down to the first corner, you're entering that corner at 5th gear at full speed. This one's going to be really fun, guys, has to be said. I mean, I am so looking forward to this. Our first driver out on track is going to be the Ferrari of Maxo. He's going to be our guinea pig here. While we have a minute, let's look at the driver's standings. A-Dub leads the Drivers' Championship by 9 points over Brian Mosser, 772 to 763. Noganator, 605 is a little bit of a ways behind. He will need a good result today. Soy Loco, 454. He's pretty much out of this almost entirely. 4th for him is a good result. Gab, 5th. Alvarado, 6th. Peter DRH, 7th. Texas Tornado, 8th. Fuse Rogue, 9th. Manny Ghost rounds out the top 10. As we said with the Constructors, it's a currently 124-point gap for Mercedes, back to Alfa Romeo, 1060 to 936. If Mercedes leaves 139 points, the difference between the two teams, they will be crowned Constructors Champions. Williams 3rd, 879. McLaren 4th, 813. AlphaTauri 691. Ferrari 11 points back at 680. Red Bull 638. Aston Martin 598. Alpine 565. And Haas at 532. Maxo's going to be our first driver around this circuit. Let's go along with him here for the inaugural timed attempt lap here at the Lusail International Circuit in Qatar, the penultimate round of the Division 3 season, Season 10, coming to a close. It's been a blast, and we're here, and it's underway. Down to this first corner, again, this is going to be a really fun one come the race time. It's going to be 5th gear throughout this corner. Very fun. And then you're going to go back down a couple of gear shifts downwards through turn 2. And again, it's another flowing left-hander. Then through turn 3, just a little bit of a switch, nothing much to the outside. Then double apex, 2 consecutive right-handed corners here of 4 and 5. You want to get those ones correctly. That'll give you a good run down to 6. This is going to be the first place where you go down to 3rd gear. Be careful of the track limits on the outside. He's done pretty well up through into turn 7. Starts off as a kind of tight corner, but then, again, you got to watch out for exit there. It kind of creeps up on you through 8, 9, similar to that of Bahrain as well as what those corners remind me of, in towards turn 10. He's done well. He can carry a lot of speed on exit as the corner opens up more. Exiting sector 2 now into this triple apex right-hander here, 12, 13, and then eventually in towards 14. Very tricky combination of corners. Into 15 now. Maybe a downshift if you need it. It's a quick corner. And then into the final corner of turn 16, down to 5th gear. 4th he chooses to be in here. Exit, doing very well. DRS activated. And across the line, eventually, will be, oh no, it's Maxo. It's going to be a 1:24.354. Has to be said, I am kind of expecting a little bit better. I think we can do better. Brian Mosser, 1:23.093, then puts Maxo back by almost a second and a half. That is going to be the first good attempt there. Dead text message. And then A-Dub, 1:22.492. That's 0.6 of a second back to Brian Mosser. I believe next up is, I want to say it's the Alpine. Texas Tornado is going to be starting one here. Texas Tornado's had himself a good stretch of couple of races here. I want to say he won last time out. No, it was actually Soy Loco winning last time out in Brazil. Texas Tornado taking Japan. And I'm just... oh, that's right. Texas Tornado did cross the line first. It was a steward's finding that resulted in Soy Loco taking the win. That was a very good battle at the end. Texas Tornado did cross the line first. It was due to the steward's findings that he did not win that race. But either way, he's had himself a very good stretch, a couple of races here. First and second place. Definitely something to be proud of. Now, this track is a pretty... Well, he's invalidated there, hasn't he? That's coming out of turn 7. This track is very different than some of these other circuits we go to. As Giancarlo sets a lap, he has invalidated. However, this track is very different in the fact that it's not necessarily straight line speed or cornering ability that's going to get the job done tonight, because you only have the one DRS zone, and with the cornering speed, it's not necessarily about... It's about getting it cleanly and stringing together good laps is going to be the important part tonight. Sure, the better your car can handle, you're going to do it. You're going to go through these corners better, of course. It's about carrying the speed. It's about linking up the corners. It's about having the lap flow. There's not many tracks on schedule like this to where it's going to be, you know, a genuine show of skill and talent, really. You know, you look at tracks like Monza's a good example, where you're not necessarily concerned with cornering ability. The DRS makes up for so much of the lap that it really comes down to having that straight line speed. And then you have another track like Hungary, where it's pretty much entirely cornering ability, very little straight line speed, and it's all about being able to get around that tight and twisty track. This is a perfect blend of everything you'd want out of an F1 circuit. It's, I believe this track primarily, prior to this point, being used for MotoGP, I think. Is that correct? As you can see, it's quite a narrow track, actually. But I'm sure we're going to have ourselves a great race on tap for tonight. I cannot wait. And if you remember the last time we visited this circuit back in 2021 in real life, you notice it was a very interesting Grand Prix. Multiple drivers getting punctures from the raised curb that's had an impact on the floor and the front wing. And then, you know, naturally the parts getting sucked under the car. That's going to be a big factor. As well as, I believe, Fernando Alonso getting a podium for Alpine in that race as well. We're looking forward to creating more history this weekend, as I believe Max Verstappen can win the Drivers' Championship just by finishing 6th or better in the sprint race. What a story that would be. It looks as if the Mercedes of Call Me Maybe has gone 3rd, and I believe Texas Tornado has moved himself further into the top 5. We're along with Fuse Rogue here. Fuse Rogue, I tell you what, had himself a great couple of weeks, and then suddenly, recently, the luck has not been in his favor. He has not won since the Netherlands back on August 24th, in which he had won. That was his 3rd race win in a row. And since then, it's kind of been a story of, can he bounce back? I believe he didn't even finish the race last week. If we look at the results page, yeah, Fuse Rogue didn't finish in Brazil. Fuse Rogue, well, he did get 2nd in Japan. That part is true. And, oh, he won Singapore. That happened to be... Oh, yeah, there he is. Yeah, so he's got 4 wins in the season. He has invalidated this lap. It's a 1:22.412. That would have been the best lap of the night, but he has invalidated, as I was looking at my cheat sheet of information. Then Brian Mosser on an out lap. You know, he's been on the precipice of leading this championship pretty much the whole season. You know, he's gone in and out of the lead fighting back with Noganator. In fact, those two tangled again last week as well. Brian Mosser needs himself a clean race here tonight. That's going to be the biggest thing. He does not want to leave the door open for A-Dub. The door's already pretty much open, but how far can A-Dub get through that door tonight is going to be the big question, because one good result could really end. One good result for A-Dub could really end Brian Mosser's chances at a championship. And I tell you what, if he does win, he will have deserved it, and A-Dub falls in that same category as well. But Brian Mosser being at that point all season long, it would be kind of a shame to see him not get it. That part's for sure. I think he will have definitely thought, you know, the opportunity slipped from him, and that was going to be one of the best chances he's had. So for his sake, well, he's invalidated his lap then. I believe he's cut the apex going through turn 7. but for his sake, he's going to be hoping for a good result. We do have the Ferrari of Soy Loco, who's going to be starting a time lap here. Last week's race winner, who, if you remember correctly, he was kind of on the off-tire strategy, and then somehow in those final couple of laps really started to put the pressure to Texas Tornado. Finished second. Penalties applied after the race, meaning he is the winner of the Grand Prix. You know, you don't really want to win races after the fact in the stewards' reports. You'd much rather do it on track. But that win will mean a lot to Soy Loco nonetheless as he makes his way now in towards Sector 2. Through Sector 1, it's a 27.216. It's purple Sector 1 from him so far as we go along with the Ferrari here. Through this long right-hander, turn 7, gotta watch for exit there. That one may prove difficult if there's two cars side-by-side through that corner. Again, only the one DRS zone on this track. It's going to be something that a lot of the drivers don't really deal with. You know, only this, Japan, and that of Monaco, as well as some of the only tracks that only have the one DRS zone like this. In fact, I believe that's all the tracks that only have the one DRS zone like that. Unless I'm forgetting one. If I am, correct me if I'm wrong. But Soy Loco now coming through the final sector, in through the final corner, down to that fourth gear. Let's see how he handles exit. Nice and tidy, DRS activated on the rear wing. He's used all of his deploy for the lap. To the line he goes. He may be able to get himself up there, and he does. 122.524, 3/100ths of a second back to A-Dub. Very, very good lap from Soy Loco. 7 minutes and 15 seconds here. And it's a very close one amongst the top three. The two Mercedes currently occupy P4 and P5. Brian Mosser not on track. Call me maybe, I believe, is actually coming around to finish the lap here. This is another thing I'm looking at here. A lot of these drivers are finishing, you know, they're using all their deploy by the end of the lap. As Call Me Maybe goes 122.572, moves within 8/100ths of a second in provisional pole. The top three, actually the top four, separated by a 1/10 and a half. That is brilliant stuff then. We're going to have an absolute dogfight off the line. And I tell you what, I wouldn't be surprised if Brian Moss or Texas Tornado or someone else outside that range finds their way on the pole. There's a lot of quick drivers on this grid. So we'll have to wait and see, as Manigos is going to be coming around the line here. A-Dub goes 122.336, reclaims himself, cements himself rather, as provisional pole, now leads by just about 2/10 of a second back to Soy Loco. This is not going to be the lap for Manigos, but maybe he puts down one here. Now, as we were saying, a lot of these drivers are finishing out their energy deploy. By the time they get down to that pit straight, honestly, you may even need to consider starting it, or, you know, turning it on by the time you cross the line and into turn 1. Very similar to Portimao in that respect, to where you have it on going through that last corner. You expect it to be able to finish the lap, and it doesn't. So your straight line speed lacks by the time you get to the line. So there may be sometimes, maybe a couple of these drivers here, maybe that's just what they're lacking, is a little bit more, you know, being careful with their energy deploy. Manigos here throughout into the second sector. He's gone wide, hasn't invalidated, so he's going to keep going. It's like, is it A-Dub over there? Going through Sector 3 now, yellow flag surrounding him. It's one of the Alfa Romeos that is, and he's on low fuel is the reason behind that. Manigos is a second slower through Sector 2, and I think this lap is going to be out the window for him. Brian Mosser, this is the lap I'm interested in here. Currently making his way through the final corner. This will be a timed attempt from him, and he's running out of time. Currently, a P5 is not a bad spot to be, but when you have this close, when the gap is this close, I mean, it's 3/10 from P1 to P4. Brian Mosser's then, you know, another 4/10 behind that. He's kind of looking like he's behind the 8 ball here, has to be said. Through the first couple of corners, looks pretty good, carries some decent speed. Starting off a pretty solid lap here into the double right-handers of turns 4 and 5. Oh, I think he's gone a little bit slower into that first corner. Does, I think, okay through 5. He's only 3/100ths faster so far. He's going to need to step it up here. 4.5 minutes remaining in the session, so I would assume each driver maybe is going to have 1 or 2 more lap attempts. Brian Mosser maybe a little hesitant there. Wheel spin on exit. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think this is going to be the attempt to look for here for Brian Mosser. As gap 122.244, provisional pole for the Red Bull, puts about a 10th back to A-Dub. That's something we didn't expect. Brian Mosser's actually faster by 2/10 of a second through Sector 2. At the moment, that doesn't improve position. However, I'm sure that a good lap here will at least, I think, kind of cement him within that top 6, top 7. We'll have to wait and see as he now makes his way through turn 16. Little hesitant on the throttle on exit. He was about to go wide of the corner. The deploy is now used. And to the line goes Brian Mosser, puts himself 122.778, improves by 0.3 of a second, does not improve on the leaderboards, stays 6th. The next driver coming around on the line is that of Soy Loco. Let's go along with him as he's starting one here. His outlap was invalidated, but it's not a this and next invalidation, so he's on a timed one now. Through the first corner, takes a little bit of a wider approach that time. Haven't really seen that much, and then cuts as much as he can through turn 2. I tell you what, this is off to... these are kind of different lines than we've seen so far. Hughes Rogan Williams goes 3rd, just about a 10th-and-a-half back of provisional pole. Another name trying to put themselves in the top 5 and on the front couple of rows. Soy Loco a 10th-and-a-half faster through the first sector. So 2.5 minutes to go, roughly. I think it's definitely going to be, I don't want to say it's panic time here. That's probably not the right word. But F your Soy Loco, who's just invalidated your lap. You got to keep going. You got to get back to the pits and get back out there. A 122, minute and 23-second lap, not leaving you a lot of time to the end of the session here to get one more going. So, yeah, Fuse Rogue's got to get going here. Soy Loco's got to get going here, and Fuse Rogue, for that matter, if he wants another one. A-Dub on an outlap. This is going to be an important one for him, because at the moment, this is the first driver so far this session who has properly tested him for pole position. Across the line now, Jean Carlos is starting a timed attempt. I believe was that an Alpine of, well, it's one of the Alpines is coming out in front of him. A-Dub, 2nd place at the moment. Let's go along with him. Down the pit straight, a minute and 45 left in the session. Let's see if A-Dub can improve through the first corner he goes. Again, a slightly wider line than what we've been accustomed to seeing. And then another one through the second corner. Little flick of oversteer there. Fuse Rogue's done all he can. He retires in the pits. Into the double right-hander here. Turns 4 and 5. Maybe a little hesitant through the first corner. Through the second one, he looks pretty good. Actually slower currently by just about a 10th.25. Still a lot of lap left here through turn 7. 1 minute to go. Next up to the line, looks like it is the Alpine of Texas Tornado. Behind him, one of the Mercedes drivers. It's that of Call Me Maybe. Brian Mosser has said he's done all he can do and chooses not. A-Dub has gone wide. This is coming out of turn 10 and through turn 11. Slightly an odd place to go wide out of. I think he was going to be able to track extend and maybe keep the lap going, but he decides to back out of it. So A-Dub on the back foot now. 40 seconds to go. Call Me Maybe starts a timed lap now. Who else do we have? It's Texas Tornado. It's Dead Text Message. Around the line now is his teammate, who Texas Tornado puts himself P7, now within half a second of provisional pole. That pole time separates the top 8 cars, the top 9 by a second, the top 8 by half a second. Next up, one of the McLarens. It is the Noganator. Let's see if he's able to come across the line and improve here. I'm going to say the answer is no. He's slower by 6/100ths of a second. Not going to be enough. Gab is actually starting a timed lap here. Is he going to have enough to start one? Yes, he is. So, A-Dub has retired. He's done all he can do. It looks as if next up around the line is going to be Call Me Maybe, I think. Is that Dead Text Message who's gone wide? Yes, it is. Something has happened then with Dead Text Message. I think he's just flat out lost the car. Yikes, not ideal for him. Next up, it is the Mercedes of Call Me Maybe, who's purple sector 2, a quarter of a second faster so far. I think he may be on for pole here, but remember, Gab in the Red Bull is going to be the final driver to put down a timed attempt. Next across the line, it is Call Me Maybe. Nice through the exit. DRS open, 180 miles an hour as he gets to the stripe. 122.258, moves within 2/100ths of a second of Gab. Just, and I mean just, shy of pole. One simple mistake away, and he would have himself a pole position point. Next up, it is that of Jean Carlos, who is coming in. Let's see Noganator behind him on a timed lap here, I think. Does he complete it? No, he doesn't. It is going to be Gab coming to the line here, and I think at this point it's safe to say Gab has secured himself pole position here just by the skin of his teeth, it has to be said. The top three separated by a tenth, unless Gab even betters his time here, which he doesn't. He's 0.2 of a second slower, so it is Gab, the Red Bull, on pole. Call me maybe, and the Mercedes in second by 2/100ths of a second. A-Dub rounds out the top three by less than a tenth, and Fuse Rogue less than 0.2. What a tight and compact and competitive grid we're going to have for this Qatar Grand Prix. So your starting grid then for the Qatar Grand Prix, it's Gab in the Red Bull on pole by less than 2/100ths of a second over Call Me Maybe. A-Dub rounds out the top three, less than a tenth. Fuse Rogue, less than 0.2. The top two rows separated by 0.2 of a second. Soy Loco 5th, Manigo 6th, 7th is Texas Tornado, 8th Brian Mosser, who needs a good result to stay in the championship, is P8, 9th Noganator, 10th is Dead Text Message, 11th is John Carlos, 12th Maxo. Rounding out the field, P13 is that of Anto. Once again, if Mercedes leave with a 139-point gap, they win the championship. But for Brian Mosser, he needs a good result to stay in the Drivers' Championship alongside A-Dub. This is going to be one hell of a Grand Prix. So the night skies are rather calm here at the moment in Qatar, but it's about to turn very chaotic and very crucial here for Division 3. Once again, like to remind you, Midwest F1 and the entirety of the Esports League. That includes World of Outlaws, Gran Turismo 7, soon to be, soon to be the Supercross game, as well as Dirt Rally 2.0, as I believe maybe we have a couple other things going on. I'm not quite sure, but the entirety of the Esports League brought to you by Raise Energy and Epos Audio. I'm assuming another mediums to hards tonight. It sucks to say that. I kind of miss the older games where we had a little bit of playing about with the tire strategy with, you know, what tire you qualified on, but unfortunately that's just not the case anymore. Once again, 13 drivers on the grid tonight. Not the biggest grid we had. I don't want to sound like the bearer of bad news, but I think perhaps this might be the final season of Division 4, and I think those two divisions, this one and Division 4, are going to, merge next season. I don't know. It kind of seems as if these games are really starting to kill off, driver participation, as well as, naturally we're not in COVID times anymore, and so everybody's out of the house and actually has jobs and lives again. Which kind of sucks to see, but, I tell you what, we've made a lot of good memories here in this league, and hopefully this carries on for a long, long time, because I tell you what, I have enjoyed every moment that I've had. Even the bad ones. Even the moments where I, about to win a Division 3 Constructors Championship and get taken out on the first lap by an Alpine. That was unfun. And I was in the Mercedes then as well, so this might be this might be slight vengeance day for me if the Mercedes team can actually put together the championship win here tonight. I'm not sure, exactly how the math is going to work out. We'll get to that, by the time we get to next week, but yeah, this is going to be... I tell you what, I am more excited for this Grand Prix than I have, for a lot of them. It looks like... Is that right? Medium to soft? There's no way. Well, the majority of the grid, all but 3, have gone on the mediums. Brian Mosser, again, one of those drivers that has been known recently to take the off strategy. Is it the correct thing to do? I'm not quite sure. I think he got screwed by the safety cars last week. I'm just wondering if that's going to be the same case yet again. But his teammate of Call Me Maybe has the potential to really, not only really help seal this Constructors Championship, but let's say he gets a good start off the line. He's able to defend this guy right behind him. The Alfa Romeo A-Dub, his teammate's championship rival, only ahead of Brian Mosser by 9 points. It's going to be a big night for all sorts of storylines going on here. Thinking, not that it really matters, it kind of matters less than it did before, but Dead Text Message kind of teetering on the edge of relegation here. He's going to need a good result, assuming we do still stay with 4 divisions, he will need some help to get down to that 4th to stay up here in Division 3, but we'll see. So, coming through the final sector now on the formation lap. Again, 5th gear at full speed going into that first corner. This is not a track with a very tight and tricky first corner like you'll see at Monza, like you'll see at, Hungary, like you'll see Coda, Spa. This is a very open, flowing, and fast first corner. Very much reminiscent to that of, I would say, Spain. Probably its closest, relative as far as having a quick first corner like that. But we'll see. It's not actually that far of a run into the first corner from where we're actually lining up on the grid. This start-finish line is actually well down the grid here. It's not well down the pit straight. It's not actually towards the front end of it like you'd see at Bahrain, where it's, immediately coming out of that final corner. That's where the line is. So, bearing that in mind, Gab will have the outside, and I would say not preferred line going through the first corner. I would say if he's able to hold the lead through that first corner and into the second, he will maintain it throughout the rest of the first sector. So it's going to be a really close one, and we'll have to wait and see if Gab can put together a good start here. Red Bull versus Mercedes. How many times do you see this one in both real life and in the esports world? We have lights turning on here for the first time ever in Qatar for the Midwest F1 League, and they're off. And Gab, it does have to be said, gets a much better start. Fuse Rogue looks all the way down to the inside, and I think, will he get around A-Dub? Yes, he does. For now, and then suddenly starts to fall back again. It looks like we have a yellow flag in the back. It's Brian Mosser who's gone around. The driver who is in contention for the championship is at the tail end of the grid before exiting the first corner. Such heartbreak for the lad. A-Dub's actually been able to take that second spot from that of Comey Maybe. Comey Maybe's not at a good start whatsoever. And so, as we wind our way now into the second sector, it looks as if A-Dub, within 0.3 of a second, trying his best to find a route around the Red Bull here, but it has to be said, again, it's going to be about how clean your lap is rather than anything else. That final sector is going to prove so crucial with the amount of DRS that you do have. It's only the one zone, but it's going to mean a lot. So let's see. And I'm just wondering what has happened with Brian Mosser. Does he have wing damage? The car was around. By the time I even realized it was him, it was just such a not good start. And it looks like Fuse Rogue here within pressure distance of A-Dub now as we head towards the 16th corner. If he maintains the slipstream and is able to save enough battery to this point and then use it, I think he may have himself a good enough opportunity. There he goes, down to the inside. Pedal to the metal here. Gab does set the fastest lap. A-Dub tries to strike back, but he doesn't have enough room. And Fuse Rogue promotes himself to the second spot. A-Dub now relegated to where he started in P3, but after the first lap of the Grand Prix, Brian Mosser on his way in. Let's see, is it the wing change for the man who is in second place in the championship? Yes, the front wing is coming off, medium tires going on. It is a horrendous start, as now Fuse Rogue within 0.2 of a second of our leader, trying to find a way around, not to mention A-Dub and also Soy Loco battling for this lead here. Perhaps Soy Loco's a little bit far behind, but there's Fuse Rogue looking for the outside. Does he have it? No. For now, he's going to have to check back in line and hope and pray that Gab makes a mistake. But for the time being, it's still within 0.2 of a second, and now A-Dub in this battle as well, and all the while, that now allows Los Mandigos. He is now, I would say, in striking distance to maybe gain a position here through the triple right-hander of 12, 13, and 14. Is any mistake made that can open the door? I tell you what, Los Mandigos has gotten a great exit there. If Soy Loco makes a mistake, he may be very much in danger. As they make their way to the 16th corner, nobody's going to have the opportunity now. It looks as if A-Dub's gone a wide entry through the corner. Mandigos a slip of oversteer. He's going to fall behind now as they go down the pit straight. Fuse Rogue within distance of Gab here. Soy Loco down to the inside on A-Dub. Anto is DNF'd, and a safety car is now on track. And did Fuse Rogue get the position before the safety car came out? Well, it looks like A-Dub has, did perhaps Mandigos get around him, because A-Dub is now then gotten back around Mandigos in that exchange, so maybe the game say that A-Dub did not, or was Mandigos not around A-Dub when the safety car came out. That may be a very real possibility, but it is that of Anto, our first DNF of the day. So unfortunate for him. I will say, as far as Brian Mosser is concerned, that will at least allow him the ability to catch back up. And now he's on the medium tires, the fresh medium tires. He's on the same strategy as the majority of the field, at least the front runners for that matter. This may have been best case scenario for Brian Mosser, considering the absolutely horrendous start that he had. But it's Fuse Rogue who has taken the lead of the Grand Prix, I think. Not quite sure. I'll have to look at the film again, but I'm pretty sure he got there before the safety car came out. It was very, very close. I think he's got it. I don't think Gab has any excuse, and or excuse isn't the right word. I don't think he's got a fight to give to say that Fuse Rogue illegally overtake him as the safety car came out. I'm not quite sure. Gab did all he could, but again, being in that, you know, sippy hole of not having, of course DRS wasn't out at the time, but still, as you're the head of the train then, even when you don't have DRS, you're still having to punch the hole into the air for all the cars behind you, which will affect your straight line speed severely. Call me maybe the Mercedes is in. Does he go for the hards? That would be my question. Yes, he does. Is he missing a front wing, and that's the reason for his stop? No, the answer is no. This is purely a tactical stop from Call Me Maybe, who now, I tell you what, the Mercedes team have fallen back. Call Me Maybe, remember, started second, looked like he was going to get a good start, and I think just got simply swallowed up amongst the leaders there, and maybe had to take the safe road and avoid contact by dropping back. Aye. What a wild turn of events here in the opening stages. Safety car is going to take a second to sort itself out. I'm going to step aside and review the footage. But for now, Fuse Rogue remains in first. So, safety car has not decided to come in this lap, but I will say, in looking at my footage, if I will leave myself about a 5-second gap just to look at it now. I hope I certainly hope to put this clip in. From my point of view, by the time I got the safety car message, Gab the Red Bull was still ahead of Fuse Rogue. It's just a nose. It's just barely, but according to my POV, I think this lead belongs to Gab. Oi, I'm not too sure, because obviously Fuse Rogue has had no time to react, and he's just going to follow what the game says. You know, if the game says to overtake the car, if the game says he's in first place, obviously he's going to listen to that, but I think Gab may just... I think he may have a case here. Man, this is... oh. The developments we're having here. Goodness gracious. So, can we look at the tires now, perhaps? Well, Call Me Maybe, Dead Text Message, and Jean Carlos all on the hards. Jean Carlos started on the hards. Call Me Maybe and Dead Text Message have pit at some point to fit them. Brian Mosser has just recently pit for the mediums. You know, so that's that. We're actually going to turn off this telemetry just because down that front straight, the camera angle is not really good enough, and we get the cars kind of interfering with the overlay there. I wish there was a way to kind of, you know, change the opacity of it in the broadcast settings. I know you can when it's your own telemetry when you're driving, but not necessarily, you know, in this situation when you're in the broadcast booth. That's the only thing. I wish he was able to, you know, to customize that. Doesn't look like anything happening in the Discord so far. Nobody's mad at each other. Nothing's happened. Safety car is in this lap. Fuse Rogue. Well, hang on, what's happened here? Uh-oh. Well, hang on just a second. We've got a front wing missing from the AlphaTauri of Los Mandigos, and A-Dub has pulled off the track. What in the hell has happened with these two? No, it's A-Dub's front wing that's gone. What has happened here? Has he ran into has he ran into the back of a car? Well, Soy Loco is on his way into the pit. What is happening here? A-Dub's got a 5-second penalty for a severe collision with Mandigos behind the safety car. And as we're under green flag here, I think... I'm not sure. Why is Soy Loco decided to pit? Well, we're back under green flag. Lots of questions to be asked. I'm really not sure as Texas Tornado looks down to the inside of Los Mandigos for the first corner. I tell you what, yes, Los Mandigos does have the spot. Very nicely done, but if he's able to keep it is going to be another question. I think the answer is yes. Yes, it is. But what has happened with these two? Why have they pit? It makes no sense to me. Well, now the pressure is on for Gab here, who we know when Fuse Road gets into clean air, he usually finds a way to get away from the pack here. And it looks like Noganator has made a great move on Mandigos. Mandigos looking down the inside. It's going to be side by side now as they go through. What is this? Oh, and Noganator's gone out wide. I don't know if he's made contact or the car's gotten away from him, but he now drops to the tail end of the grid. And now behind, oh, would you look who it is, Brian Mosser ahead of him. And I tell you what, in fairness to Brian Mosser, the horrendous start that he did have, as Dead Text Message trying to get down the inside to Call Me Maybe, almost happened, and now his teammate of Brian Mosser down to the inside, and that's about the easiest overtake Brian Mosser's had all day, as he now gets up to the 7th spot, and now is +1 on the day. I was going to say, in fairness to Brian Mosser's dreadful start, A-Dub has just, I think, ran into a car, into a safety car, and that's why he's fallen to the back of the grid, because he's had to pit and replace the front wing, whose end plate was completely missing. As it looks like Noganator getting around the outside, then a Dead Text Message. Something's wrong with Dead Text Message. He has fallen a couple spots here. Call Me Maybe down the inside of Jean Carlos, down into the first corner, atop the grid. It looks like Gab and Fuse still very close then. Fuse nearly lost the car. Coming out of the first corner, was able to hold on. The door was about to be open for Gab, but he swiftly shut it. Once again, that was very close to being dangerous as Brian Mosser side by side almost with Jean Carlos here as they make their way into the 4th corner. He's going to have to go the long way round the outside. Yes, he does. Brian Mosser, beautiful overtake over the Alfa Romeo of Jean Carlos, moves himself up to 6, and now look at the stack up behind him. Was contact made there between Jean Carlos, Noganator, and Dead Text Message? I tell you what, it was very close. Texas Tornado 3-second penalty for multiple warnings, but Noganator gets around the outside then of Jean Carlos through a turn 8. I tell you what, that was quite the backup there. I'm a little surprised no damage was done, because it looked as if it was just an absolute accordion effect between those 3 cars. I mean, I'm not even quite sure what's happened, to be right honest with you. Maxo pressuring Jean Carlos here. I tell you what, Jean Carlos really seems to be on the back foot, but in that kind of defensive maneuver, that has now pushed Maxo behind, and Dead Text Message is now threatening to overtake the Ferrari as his teammate of Soy Loco has picked up 3 seconds for multiple warnings. On to the 8th lap of the Grand Prix here. We still really have not had our first use of DRS, as it is now enabled this time by. As Dead Text Message getting around, oh no, it's Maxo, down the pit straight. And 0.3 of a second is the gap between our top 2, as Texas Tornado, currently in 3rd position, although, mind you, the penalty is applied, currently finds himself, 3rd. However, with that penalty, well, he has the fastest lap as well, has to be said. Soy Loco, fastest lap, 1:25.741. We're going to go on back for a second between Jean Carlos and Maxo. This battle here, 3/4 of a second. Tell you what, Maxo does not seem to be enjoying his car at this moment in time. Oh, he's going to go right into the back of the Alfa Romeo then. Well, I'm not entirely sure what that was all about, but that was definitely contact there, has to be said. So it is a second, 1.2 between these 2 cars, and I think, was there a mistake made from Gab somewhere, because now Texas Tornado was within position to make the overtake with DRS once they get down the pit straight? I'm not rightly sure. Gab was within 0.3 of a second at the start of this lap. I'm thinking it was just genuine error. Oh, and genuine error nearly strikes for Texas Tornado there. Somehow he held onto the car. Brilliant control from him, but does that leave him outside DRS range? No, it doesn't. He'll have it, but I don't think he's going to be close enough to make the move happen. As it looks like the grid really getting spread out here. No real threats of overtake unless we look at the back, as between Jean Carlos and, oh no, it's Maxo. In fact, Maxo's gone wide out of the final corner. Picks up 3 seconds of penalty for his troubles. I tell you what, a couple of tenths here between these two again. Battling very closely, these two. Not to mention the incident they had. Texas Tornado, another 3-second time penalty, moves himself up to 6 seconds. Current closest battle on track is that between Call Me Maybe and Mandigos here for the 4th spot. We have a yellow flag. It's dead text message. He's around and he's in the barriers. He's able to back himself out across the track. I'm just wondering, has he lost the front wing? I'm going to say yes. Will we need a virtual safety car or a regular safety car? I'm not sure. Once we get a better camera angle, we'll be able to tell you. I would think his front wing is gone. His camera angle is really ass, has to be said. And you can't change it. And yep, front wing is gone for the Alpine of dead text message. I think he's just lost the car. DRS enabled here. Down the pit straight they go. Call Me Maybe whilst having DRS to Mandigos. Mandigos has DRS to Texas Tornado. So I think that's the only reason that this overtake isn't being made. Well, we're only 10 laps in, a third of the way through the Grand Prix, but has to be said, we didn't think the good day for Mercedes was going to happen. Kind of looks like it may happen now. Has to be said. I mean, how the turntables in 10 laps time. His dead text message, 5-second penalty for speeding into the pit lane. He's going to join up with A-Dub on that front. Oh, big wiggle then for Mandigos. The door might be open here for Call Me Maybe. Nah, he's not going to have the opportunity yet. There's not really an overtaking corner on this track. That's the thing. It has to be said. Again, this corner, I think, primarily used by MotoGP, if I'm to be mistaken. I'm not quite sure. But, I mean, there's not really a tight corner anywhere on this track that, you know, a braking zone is implied and that we may get a genuine, you know, out-braking maneuver into a corner. I think it really is DRS into that first one, and then if somebody makes a mistake in front of you, that's just going to be the end of it. Texas Tornado. Oh, goodness gracious! Holy mackerel! Texas Tornado has gone around. He's picked up his third 3-second penalty, but more importantly, he has spun in the path of both Los Mandigos and Call Me Maybe, and somehow, how in the hell have those two avoided that right in front of them? And would you look at it, both cars come out unscathed. That was scary. Holy mackerel, what a turn of events that was. I'm in absolute disbelief that one didn't end in absolute misery for either of these drivers as it looks now. Yep, Texas Tornado on his way in. I think dead text message just picked up a penalty then. So the closest battle on track, barring that of Texas Tornado and A-Dub, although that's going to change in a second here once the timings gets reset. Closest battle on track is Call Me Maybe back to Mandigos still. These two have been battling better part of 5 laps now. It's only gotten to a close battle slightly recently. Fuse Rogue in the moment, 3 seconds ahead of Gavin. This is exactly what we were worried about. Because when you get Fuse Rogue into clean air, it's all over. I mean, time and time again, he has proven that if you let him get ahead of the pack, he will pull away. And I think that's exactly what's happened here. Gab has had himself, you know, in fairness to him, it will say he's down a position. But he did well, and I think, you know, in fairness, just eyeballing the replay initially, I'll have to look at it again. I could be wrong. It did look to me, at least from my screen, that Gab was still ahead of Fuse Rogue when the safety car came out. But down to the inside, looked Mandigos, didn't really have a chance. In fact, now I'd say Mandigos is more pressuring Gab than Call Me Maybe is pressuring Mandigos here. We have a yellow flag. It's one of the Alpines. Oh, a little bit of a glitch there. Mandigos now down to the inside. Oh, I tell you what, Soy Loco has gone off outside of turn 16. He's well off the track. Or is that Maxo? It might be Maxo, yeah. He's picked up 10 seconds for exceeding track limits. As down to the inside is Mandigos. Side by side now for the second spot as they enter the 7th corner. Mandigos is going to have to be on the brakes first, and the switchback maneuver, and it's a brilliant one at that. And now the door is open for Call Me Maybe, as he has 2 drivers in his sights, 2 of which I think he's going to have a fair opportunity of overtaking. To the inside is Gab. Gab's going to lose another spot, and I think contact, and that car has gone around, and Gab is going to plummet down the order now. Oh, and I tell you what, I know he was side by side with Call Me Maybe. To the naked eye, and to first glance into, just seeing it on the fly, I'm not sure Call Me Maybe has done anything wrong. I'll have to look at it again. But at first glance, Call Me Maybe hasn't made any sort of, jagged maneuver to where it would cut off the forward progress of Gab to where he would get spun like that. I think maybe Gab has just slid a little bit further up the track, and that is what's caused that incident. Call Me Maybe has gotten around Manigos and will now take the second spot, all the while Fuse Rogue out to a 5-second lead. Texas Tornado, another penalty, 3 seconds, up to 15, as I believe with dead text messages, actually no, that is Texas Tornado, who's gone off again. Actually, this will be the first time for him. But so not long ago, we saw one of the Ferraris, I believe it was Max, so way outside of turn 16. As, what's happened with oh no, Texas Tornado. Well, he's lost the car. Coming out of the final corner, it's off the track, mind you, the virtual safety car is on track for the front wing that has been shed by the Alpine of Texas Tornado. And now the grid is neutralized here. Just about halfway through this race, a couple of more laps and we'll be at that point. We've pretty much had it all except the red flag. that's really been the that Giancarlo's drive-through penalty for speeding under the virtual safety car. Not ideal whatsoever. And I tell you what, I think Manigos has caught Call Me Maybe sleeping on the restart, because now he's within 0.3 of a second. I just want to have a look. 12 laps, the medium tires. I think if you started on those mediums, or you pit, like we're looking at Fuse Rogue, like we're looking at Manigos, except around the outside now is Manigos, and he'll get the spot. I think if you're on the medium tires right now, your pit window is going to be coming here shortly. Call Me Maybe, despite losing the position, is still within pace enough to, I think, have a look at getting it back. They'll have to stay relevant and close enough, just to stay within the position, to stay within the second. Because, again, it's a healthy dose of DRS down this front straight. Half a second the gap. Giancarlo's on his way in. He's serving his drive-through at the moment. These are your penalties in the moment. Gab, Soy Loco have both picked up 3 seconds. A-Dub at 5 for the collision under the safety car with Manigos. Texas Tornado at 15 for a combination of things. Dead text message at 8. For a combination of things, and Maxo at 13 for also a combination of things. And speaking of one of the Alpines, they're on their way in. It is that of Texas Tornado, I believe. With stopping, he'll get some of his penalty taken off, but yeah, it's not going to be an ideal day for him. As a reminder, Mercedes coming into tonight sit 124 points ahead of the Alfa Romeo team. Should they leave with the gap being 139, the Constructors' Championship will be theirs. Fuse Rogue is on his way in. He's the leader of the Grand Prix. He pits for the hards. And now the battle for the lead within 0.7 of a second between Mandigos and Call Me Maybe. Noganator's going to get around Fuse Rogue here naturally, as Fuse Rogue's still in the pits. Fuse Rogue, how far is he going to drop? Is he going to battle with Soy Loco here? Yes, he will. As dead text message, 3 seconds for him. So 11 seconds now. Now, how much is Fuse Rogue held up here by Soy Loco? Again, he doesn't have a chance, really, to overtake anywhere else on the circuit except down the pit straight. That might prove to be very detrimental to him. Currently, the gap from the leader back to Fuse Rogue is only 18 seconds. So I think at this moment in time, Fuse Rogue will still maintain the lead once the leader pits. However, I mean, you never know. Through 12, 13, and 14 now. 0.6 of a second. I tell you what, it's kind of closing, actually. Mandigos, I think, those 14-lap-old medium tires starting to show the signs of wear. And yes, Mandigos on his way in. And Call Me Maybe will inherit the lead, as now the top two are both Mercedes drivers. Brian Mosser did pit earlier on, for those. Remember, he started on the hards, had the poor start, and then pit, within the first couple of laps, through on the mediums. Safety car came out, so he gained a couple of spots, but now he's going to be in a position again where he will need to stop and then be pushed towards the back. That was a big slide there from Brian Mosser. I tell you what, very lucky he was able to hold on to the car. That one got risky, as A-Dub's going to come out ahead of Los Manigos here. Mind you, A-Dub still has the 5-second penalty. Fuse Rogue within half a second of Soy Loco here. I don't believe... Is Soy Loco going to be pitting? No, he's at 10-lap old hards. He will be staying out for some time still. One of the closest battles on track at the moment. As we have a yellow flag, it's one of the Alpines. It's that of Dead Text Message, who spun around. Oh, and his teammate's coming through. Goodness me, I thought that one was going to go terribly. Well, bit of glitching there, has to be said. Fuse Rogue, I'm surprised he's able to hold on to the car. This frame rate's poor. 0.6 of a second, and now 0.5 of a second, and closing. Texas Tornado, fastest lap, 125 flat for the Alpine on the softs. Let's see, any takers for the pit lane here? Yes, I believe that is both Call Me Maybe and Brian Mosser on their way in. It is the double stack. Will it work, considering the gap between the two cars? I think it will. I think this is going to be a clean double stack here. You don't see this too often at all, and Brian Mosser's put on another set of mediums. Oh, so with pitting from those hards to the mediums earlier on, Brian Mosser's been able to go hard, medium, medium, and now I think may just have a pace advantage over some of the drivers on this grid throughout the rest of the Grand Prix. That is a huge, huge development then. As now it's less than 1/10 of a second, and Fuse Rogue down to the inside of Gab, and he's able to make that one happen. That was a great maneuver, in fairness. Fuse Rogue will, I think, eventually be retaking the lead of the Grand Prix here. Noganator has to come in, Gab has to come in. 16-lap-old mediums, the both of them. The only other driver who hasn't pit yet is that of Jean Carlos. Texas Tornado has retired coming out of turn 15, and the safety car is on track. As the laps wind down, the field will be reset. As I believe Maxo is retired on track. That's not, you can't be doing that, it has to be said. Yeah, as you can see there on your screen, that Ferrari of Maxo has retired on track. That will be a qualifying ban next round for the Ferrari driver. But the safety car is on track. Only going to have a couple of drivers come in here. Oh, but Fuse Rogue is one of them. Wow, okay, I did not expect this. Fuse Rogue coming in. Those fresh hard tires that he pit for not long ago. Look at all the drivers come in. Noganator and Gab predictably, but Soy Loco in as well. Yeah, he kind of needed to, in fairness, didn't he? Los Manigos will inherit the lead of the Grand Prix here. And oh, by the way, the Mercedes of Call Me Maybe has now been promoted once again to the second spot. Does Brian Mosser have enough pace to get down the pit straight and get ahead of any of these drivers coming out? More crucially, that of Fuse Rogue, the Red Bull, and then the Ferrari. I think he will. Yes, he does! And by the way, Brian Mosser, those are fresh medium tires. He's only pit just a lap ago. So Mandigos, fresh hard tires, Call Me Maybe and Brian Mosser. Remember the double stack by Mercedes, both on 1 lap old mediums. Fuse Rogue fresh mediums, Gab fresh hards, Soy Loco and Noganator fresh softs. Wow, oh wow, what a finish to this Grand Prix we're going to have for you. I'm going to let the safety car step aside, but my goodness, this is going to be one hell of a finish to this race. Burn My Lander and the safety car will be in at the end of this lap. Oh, I tell you what, we're going to have 10 laps to go with the stripe this time by. Mandigos, despite being on, fresh hards, is really going to be at a disadvantage here, I think, because those medium tires really didn't start to fall off until about the 10th lap. Oh, Fuse Rogue has drivers in his way. These are your look at the tires. Everybody in the top 5, minus that of, well, 2 out of the 3 in the top 5 are on the hards. We'll go to the penalties now, so we keep that in mind. But Los Mandigos on the hards will lead the drivers to green here. Call me maybe. Brian Mosser, the two Mercedes, on the cusp of perhaps winning the Constructors' Championship, start second and third, and we're underway. It looks as if, are the Mercedes going to invert position here? Yes, they do. Brian Mosser gets ahead. Fuse Rogue down to the inside, and Fuse Rogue is really going to power past. Call me maybe here, and then Call me maybe picks up a 3-second penalty for multiple warnings. Oh, just for the hell of it, why not? Down to the inside looks Gab, so Loco's going to be able to stay ahead of him. And remember, P4, P5, and P6 all up for grabs right now. Noganator down to the inside of Gab. They're side by side. Somehow contact wasn't made there. That was very close. But look at this. Brian Mosser within 0.3 of a second of Manigos. Remember, Brian Mosser only behind A-Dub by 9 points coming into tonight in the driver's standings. And he needed a good result. And he's on pace for one. But he has to get around. And he picks up a time penalty. And just like that, suddenly, the win may have slipped away from Brian Mosser, as I couldn't even finish my damn sentence saying he could have walked away with one tonight. In fairness to him, a lot of drivers have time penalties, but still, you can't make this up, guys. Only in Division 3, only in the Midwest. Brian Mosser looks for the left side. He'll have to take the long way round and then get down the pit straight. It looks like Noganator is losing spots quite dramatically here. He does get the lead. Fuse Rogue in position. This is going to be a 3-car battle in the first corner. Manigos has that. Fuse Rogue down to the inside. Look at him go. And nearly 4 wide as Call Me Maybe wanted to sneak in there. And Fuse Rogue double overtake for the lead. My goodness, you just can't. It's as Call Me Maybe falls behind, down to P5. I tell you what, Call Me Maybe nearly stuck it on the inside. Soy Loco wanted to peek his head in there as well. Oh, as we look behind, dead text message has gone off. Well, thankfully he hasn't hit anything that would require the safety car, virtual safety car, to come out. But still. 0.5 of a second here between Mandigos and Soy Loco. Remember, Fuse Rogue, Mandigos, A-Dub, and John Carlos, the only 4 drivers on the grid who do not currently have a time penalty. Everybody else has 3 seconds or more. That means a lot of these positions will be up for grabs. So Brian Mosser, if he legitimately finished ahead of Soy Loco, that would be a really good result for him. Yeah, he'll lose the spot to Mandigos, and at the Soy Loco, there you go, picks up 6 seconds. Well, 3 extra seconds, so that's not helpful. But say he loses the spot to Mandigos, as well. Fuse Rogue, obviously, I think might be able to have the win. Soy Loco gets down the inside of Brian Mosser. I think Brian Mosser finishing third, that's still a damn good result, and I think that would still be enough to really cement him as him having a mega chance in this championship, as Call Me Maybe comes in and fits a new front wing. That was why he was going slow. And now, just when we thought Mercedes was going to have the day and really be able to seal the championship, I think it's going to carry in the next round in Bahrain. I think we're in Bahrain, at least. I don't know, man. 0.4 of a second between Gab and Mandigos. Holy mackerel, guys. Brian Mosser has gone a little bit wide through the 7th corner then. Yes, next week at Bahrain. Manigos 0.4 of a second or less. So remember, Soy Loco has 6 seconds of penalty. Brian Mosser just needs to kind of exist, and he'll get that spot. But he's still under pressure from Mandigos, who, by the way, Mandigos is in position to where, if, say, Fuse Rogue was to get a penalty, he would take the win of this Grand Prix. We have 7 laps to go this time by. 0.3 of a second in closing for what is realistically the 3rd spot. Well, realistically the 2nd spot, because Mandigos does have the time penalty. Brian Mosser has the time penalty, but Mandigos is going to get around him anyways. So Mandigos moves up into 3rd. Oh, and that's contact! And by goodness me, Brian Mosser... I tell you what, Brian Mosser went clean into the back of the AlphaTauri there. I tell you what, Brian Mosser does not need any ability for the stewards to give him any more penalties. He's got 3 seconds. You know, even if he gets around Mandigos, even if he perhaps got around Fuse Rogue, he still wouldn't have the win of the Grand Prix. He does not need any additional penalties to come his way because, oh, by the way, A-Dub, despite being a fair bit behind this battle, is lurking, and that championship lead will get closer. Oh, my goodness me. Brian Mosser was looking to have an outright lead of this championship if the results held his way. They did not hold his way. And now is outside of that 3 seconds on Mandigos. Of course, that's from if Mandigos were to get that penalty. So, oh, Fuse Rogue, 3-second penalty. This is exactly what we needed to look out for here. And now Mandigos, 4.3 seconds. I mean, it's 4.4, and it's not really getting any closer, this gap, either. He doesn't have DRS to Soy Loco. In fairness, Brian Mosser doesn't have DRS to him. In fact, Gab is the closest driver with DRS here. Down to the inside is the Red Bull, and Brian Mosser will fall down to 5th. And now, look at, oh, Brian Mosser's going to try it for the inside. Oh, and by the way, just a friendly reminder, Noganator's in this battle as well, and him and Brian Mosser have no lack of history, that part's for sure. As Jean Carlos picks up 3 seconds, all but 2 have time penalties, that being Mandigos, that being A-Dub. And now, a 3-car battle here for legitimately the 4th spot, probably 3rd as well, considering Soy Loco has that 6 seconds of penalty. The gap from Mandigos back to Fuse Rogue, 5 seconds. At the moment, Fuse Rogue is clear and will keep the lead by 2 seconds. To the stripe this time, we will have 5 laps to go. Brian Mosser has 0.5 of a second to Gab. Noganator has 0.5 of a second to Brian Mosser. DRS is going to be coming up here. Noganator, I mean, he needs a good result. His hopes for the championship are waning here. And it will be especially difficult next week if he's not able to get around Brian Mosser and Gab here. And let me tell you something, Brian Mosser would love nothing more to see Noganator just leave this battle. Well, it's 0.2 of a second. Not necessarily closing. Noganator doesn't have any battery to close in. We have 5 laps to go. And Brian Mosser falling behind that of Gab. Look at the tires. Yeah, we can start to see the medium starting to get slower here. Oh, by the way, Mandigos is back within 3.5 seconds of Fuse. Oh, sorry. No, that was wrong. He's within 3.5 seconds of Soy Loco. He's actually lost another 0.4 to Fuse Rogue. I thought I was still on the gap to the leader filter there. Well, Brian Mosser's gone wide then through the 6th corner. The door might be open here for Noganator. Oh, by the way, Brian Mosser now outside of DRS range on Gab for the 4th spot. The closest battle on track is that between Noganator and Brian Mosser, 2 drivers who just could not, for the life of them, find their way around each other this whole season. Every neck of the woods, every turn, every straight, these 2 drivers are next to each other and making headlines. And headlines, Soy Loco's picked up another 3 seconds, up to 9 for him. He will be dropping back down to at least P6 now. Oh, Brian Mosser's wiggled. Noganator might have a chance here. Coming into the 16th corner, DRS this time by. And Brian Mosser will not have DRS ahead in reference to trying to get past Gab. DRS open. Noganator will look for the inside here. Very late maneuver. Does he have it? Yes, he does. How well does Brian Mosser respond? I don't think he's in position enough to really strike back here, although he is right close. He's right on the tail then of Noganator. To the left side now. They're going to be side by side through the kink of turn 3 and through the double right-hander. Brian Mosser has some work to do here. Noganator's going to defend this inside line, and he's not really going to get the opportunity. I think this is going to have to come with DRS, as Noganator for now stays ahead. Oh, but look at this, Brian Mosser. I thought he was going to have one around the outside there. He didn't. Dead text message, another 3 seconds. He's up to 12. Whew. My goodness me. The gap from Fuse Rogue back to Mandigos is now up to 6 seconds, in surplus of 6 seconds. 0.4 of a second now, but it's still very close between these 2. 3 laps to go this time by. Brian Mosser down to the inside on the Noganator. Does he get past? Yes, he does. Remember, Noganator on the softs. I would have to think those soft tires are going to be wearing away quite soon if they're not there yet. And Brian Mosser picks up another 3-second penalty. He's up to 6 seconds. I tell you what, I definitely, it's somewhere. Man, I tell you what, I wouldn't be surprised if somewhere there's a controller broken in the Brian Mosser household, because really, this championship could have been sealed tonight, and it's not, and Noganator will wave goodbye as the Mercedes goes into his rearview mirror yet again. And even if Brian Mosser gets around him, the penalty is there. He will, I think, at the end of the day, still finish better than A-Dub, which is definitely huge for him. He needed that. But that just means it's going to be all to play for in Bahrain. And Bahrain, one of the best tracks on schedule, undoubtedly. But I tell you what, the first showing here in Qatar has been absolutely magnificent. You can look at the penalties and say that's a deterrent, but the racing and the stories and the developments have been absolutely impeccable. We'll have 2 laps to go this time by. At the moment, Brian Mosser doesn't... Well, he's track extended there, hasn't he? At the moment, Brian Mosser doesn't seem to be getting any closer to the Noganator. He's still within DRS range, but I don't think he's really close enough to make anything happen. The Noganator hasn't picked up another penalty yet, meaning for now, Brian Mosser is just going to have to drive out this end of the Grand Prix, knowing that even if he does get around Noganator, it's probably not going to amount for anything, and he's going to have the position given right back. Unbelievable stuff here. I tell you what, Brian Mosser is racing like he doesn't have an extra penalty. He still wants the spot. It's Call Me Maybe getting around A-Dub down the straight. Oh, look at this. Call Me Maybe, in a huge development, gets around A-Dub. Well, I tell you what, the Mercedes team putting in the late moves here because they needed that one. Both drivers naturally having a penalty, and I think A-Dub's going to get the spot back anyways, unless perhaps does he fall behind enough to where that isn't going to be the case. That could happen. I tell you what, it almost sounds like A-Dub is struggling with his car. Yes, he is. Look, he's missing his front wing. The end plate on the right-hand side. What has happened with him? How's that happened? That could be the reason why he's behind 20 seconds. I mean, that would make sense, but I didn't see where that had happened. This is news to me. That part's for sure. Oh, by the way, Gab within 0.8 of a second on Mandigos as we begin the final lap of the Grand Prix. Brian Mosser within half a second here in Noganator. Remember, Mandigos still doesn't have a penalty. Down to the inside is Brian Mosser. He's going to want this position on track. As it really is bragging rights between these two. Mind you, if Mandigos picks up a penalty, Gab's going to be right there. Although Mandigos has been on rails all day, no sign of any slip-ups or penalties from him. You know, despite being 4.5 seconds behind Soy Loco, I tell you what, Mandigos has had a brilliant display today, and he'll absolutely deserve this second place. Meanwhile, these two still battling it out here. But for the moment, it looks like Gab hot on the heels of Mandigos here, and any 3-second penalty thrown Mandigos' way will open the door for Gab to have an excuse to send it. But, as John Carlos and A-Dub switching positions as A-Dub goes into the pits, but Fuse Rogue, I tell you what, it's not been easy whatsoever, but Fuse Rogue, for the 5th time this season, and for the first time at Qatar, will be crowned a Grand Prix winner. Fuse Rogue in the Williams wins the inaugural Division 3 Qatar Grand Prix. Soy Loco, I think, will end up getting that 3rd position taken away from him. Yes, no, Soy Loco falls to 4th. Gab will get 3rd. And by 7/100ths of a second, that's the case. Brian Mosser stays ahead of Noganator on track, but Noganator ends up getting the spot with the penalty. Soy Loco misses out on the podium by 7/100ths. Call Me Maybe next across the line. John Carlos behind him. A-Dub and Dead Text Message, the last two to finish it out. What a Grand Prix it's been, and Fuse Rogue. I tell you what, no lack of action on track today. Remember, he sealed this win with a double overtake. Absolutely impressed with the racing that we've had today. And it's all to play for heading into Bahrain next week. That is going to be one to watch. Fuse Rogue, your winner today. So after it's all said and done in one hell of a Qatar Grand Prix, it's Fuse Rogue taking his 5th win of the year. Mandigo 2nd, Gab 3rd, Soy Loco 4th, Noganator 5th, 6th, Brian Monster 7th, Call Me Maybe 8th is Jean Carlos 9th, A-Dub 10th is Dead Text Message, and unfortunately for Maxo, Texas Tornado, and Anto, they did not finish the Grand Prix. It is all to play for into Bahrain next week. For Hotspot, it's been a pleasure joining you this time out. We'll see you next time.